Attention, Windy City! The survival of the Bears hinges on 3 bombs ready to explode. A legendary pass rusher is minutes from signing, but only if Ryan Poles plays his cards today. Meanwhile, in the secondary, a talented but immature cornerback has 1 week to convince Dennis Allen or his contract goes up in flames. And what nobody wants to tell you, Caleb Williams is under more pressure than a quarterback at Soldier Field with 0.3 seconds on the clock. If he fails, say goodbye to Super Bowl dreams until 2035. Ready for the harsh reality? This isn't just football, it's war. Every second counts. Every decision burns. Subscribe before YouTube deletes this video and find out why this season will be glory or the most epic chaos in history. Turn on the notification bell or miss out on football. We start with something that has Ryan Poles evaluating options no one expected, and I believe this could be the smartest move no one is considering. Von Miller, the 36-year-old pass rusher who helped Denver win Super Bowl 50 and has 129.5 sacks in his career, is still without a team and has been clear. He wants to play this season and in 2026 as well. But do you know what's more impressive about this? Miller is not finished like many think. Last season in Buffalo, with just 279 defensive snaps, he achieved 16 pressures and 6 sacks. To understand how good those numbers are, any player from our team last year, even playing double the snaps, didn't reach those sack numbers. Montez Sweat, our supposed defensive line leader, had a decent but not dominant season. DeMarcus Walker is no longer on the team, and we have a rotation of defensive ends that's full of potential but lacks real experience and mentorship. This is where Von Miller could change everything. Look at our current rotation. Dale Odeyingbo has talent but is inconsistent. Dominique Robinson has shown flashes but hasn't broken out. Austin Booker is a second-year project with tons of potential but needs development, and Daniel Hardy is practically a rookie. Can you imagine what these guys could learn from someone who's been in 3 Super Bowls? Who won the playoffs MVP in 2015, and who has faced the best quarterbacks in history? We're not just talking about pass rush technique. We're talking about leadership, a winning mentality, and knowing how to elevate your game at the most important moments. The organization is finally understanding the power of veteran mentorship. They brought in Case Keenum to help Caleb Williams in an extremely young quarterback room. They signed Joe Thuney, who has 4 Super Bowl rings, to stabilize and teach the offensive line. They added Grady Jarrett, a proven veteran, to work with the defensive tackles. Why not do the same with the defensive ends? Miller wouldn't just bring immediate sacks. He would be the mentor these young guys need to make the leap to the next level. But I know what you're thinking. Miguel, how much is this going to cost? And there's the real problem. Miller had a ridiculous 6-year, $120 million contract with Buffalo that paid him over $12 million last season before they released him. But here's the key. Miller is no longer looking for that kind of money. He said it publicly himself. He's at a stage in his career where he wants to win, he wants to teach, and he wants to prove he can still contribute. If the Bears could get him for a fraction of what he used to make, it would be an incredible investment. Imagine this. Miller comes on a veteran minimum contract, or something close to $3 to $4 million. He contributes 8 to 10 sacks. Pressures constantly, and in the meantime, is developing Booker, Hardy, and the rest of our young talent. By the end of the season, we wouldn't just have better immediate defensive production, but we would have accelerated the development of our entire rotation for the future. And there's another benefit no one's considering. Miller organized the Sack Summit in Las Vegas this week, a pass rushers convention similar to what the offensive linemen do. This guy is fully committed to teaching and developing the next generation of pass rushers. Do you think Ryan Poles is going to dare make this move? I think it would be great, but I also understand they have to be smart with the money. If Miller is willing to come for less money and truly committed to being a mentor, this could be exactly what our defense needs to step up to the next level. And if you thought Von Miller was controversial, wait to hear what's happening with Tyreek Stevenson, the cornerback who broke our hearts with that Hail Mary play against. Washington is literally living the most important year of his career. And I think many of you don't truly understand what's at stake here. Let's be honest about what happened. Stevenson came to Chicago with high expectations after a solid rookie season in 2023. 4 interceptions, inconsistent coverage, but with brilliant moments, especially in man-to-man coverage, and he always showed he wasn't afraid of physical contact. He was exactly the kind of aggressive cornerback we needed. The 2024 season started perfectly for him. Remember that interception he returned for a touchdown against Tennessee in the first week? That play won us the game, and we all thought, okay, this kid is going to have a special year. He had some struggles against Nico Collins in the second week, but after that, he stringed several solid performances. We hit the bye week, and it seemed like Stevenson was finding his rhythm, maturing as a player. But what happened after the bye week? A total catastrophe that changed everything. Against Washington, Terry McLaurin burned him down the sideline for a huge gain. We already started seeing problems there. But what happened next was what really destroyed us. We all know the story. But I need you to understand the magnitude of what happened. In the last seconds of the game, with Washington attempting a Hail Mary, Stevenson was more concerned with taunting the fans in the corner of the stadium than focusing on the most important play of the game. By the time he realized what was happening, it was too late. He ran desperately to try to reach the play, but instead of swatting the ball down like any veteran cornerback would do, he headed it up. That ball floated perfectly into Noah Brown's hands for a touchdown that destroyed our season. But do you know what bothered me the most about that whole situation? The lack of accountability. Stevenson eventually spoke to the media, said he had been immature and would grow from the experience. Sounded good, right? Weeks later, we saw Stevenson from the sideline, when he wasn't even playing, trying to trip Jameson Williams of Detroit in a play that had nothing to do with him. That cost him an NFL fine and showed us he really hadn't learned anything. What was Matt Eberflus' coaching staff's response? Nothing. Instead of suspending him, instead of benching him, they just reduced his snaps and put him in rotation with Terrell Smith. What kind of message does that send to the rest of the team? That you can make monumental mistakes, and there are no real consequences. I ask you, how do you expect a player to mature if there's no discipline? How do you expect him to respect authority if he sees that his mistakes have no severe consequences? But here's what really matters for 2025 and why this season is absolutely crucial for Stevenson. Dennis Allen is not Matt Eberflus. Allen comes from New Orleans with a reputation for being a strict disciplinarian who doesn't tolerate a lack of professionalism. The players themselves asked Ryan Poles for the new coaching staff to be stricter with accountability and responsibility. We've already seen in spring practices that there's a huge difference in the level of demand and discipline. Do you think Stevenson can handle this type of coaching? Because let me tell you something. When a coaching staff demands more and pressures you more, there's no gray area. Either you respond positively, appreciate the added pressure, and elevate your game, or you get frustrated with the harder coaching and shut down completely. The truth is, Stevenson has all the talent in the world. He can be a dominant cornerback. In Dennis Allen's scheme, which has historically maximized the potential of aggressive cornerbacks, he has the speed, the physique, the mentality to play man-to-man coverage at the highest level. If he responds well to Allen and matures as a person and as a player, we could have an absolutely lethal trio of cornerbacks with Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon. That would be a secondary that could compete with anyone in the league. But if he doesn't respond, if he remains the same emotional and immature player we saw in 2024, he's going to lose his starting job. And I'm not talking about losing snaps. I'm talking about playing for another team as soon as 2026. Definitely by 2027. And you know what's crazy about all this? If Stevenson plays at an elite level this season, the problem will be if Chicago can afford to pay him next offseason after having already extended contracts to Johnson and Gordon, but that's a problem I'd love to have. First, we need to see if Stevenson can handle the pressure, the discipline, and the responsibility that comes with playing for Dennis Allen. This season will tell us everything about who Tyreek Stevenson really is. Is he a talented cornerback who had a moment of immaturity, but can grow? Or is he a player who's always going to be his own worst enemy? We're going to find out very soon. And when you thought we were done, we reached the most important news. The one that's going to define not only this season, but the future of the entire franchise for the next 10 to 15 years. Caleb Williams is living the most important year of his professional career, and everything this organization has done in the last 8 months has been with him in mind. But before talking about the future, we need to be honest about his rookie season. Williams had respectable numbers, threw for 3,541 yards, 20 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. Those numbers by themselves aren't bad for a rookie. But the reality is that while he had a decent season, Jaden Daniels won Rookie of the Year leading Washington to the playoffs, and B.O. Nix had a spectacular second half of the season with Denver. But do you know why Williams didn't shine as much as his draft peers? Because he was sacked 68 times, the most of any quarterback in the entire league. 68 times. Let that sink in. Williams played behind the worst offensive line in the NFL, with the worst offensive coaching we've seen in Chicago in years, and still had respectable numbers. That he survived that season without breaking physically or mentally is impressive, but now there are no excuses. Ryan Poles has built everything around Williams, and if the quarterback doesn't make the leap we all expect, this franchise could be in serious trouble for years. Let's start with the coaching. Ben Johnson didn't come to Chicago for the money or the challenge. He came specifically because he believes he can maximize Caleb Williams' potential. Johnson is the offensive mind who completely reinvented Jared Goff's career in Detroit. Transformed Goff from a quarterback who seemed finished in Los Angeles to a Pro Bowler who led Detroit to its first playoff win in decades. Do you understand what that means? Johnson saw Williams' tape, saw the potential, and decided this was the quarterback he wanted to work with. That's a huge validation for Williams. But Johnson didn't come alone. They brought in an offensive coordinator in Thomas Brown, who knows perfectly the system Johnson wants to implement. They completely revamped the offensive coaching staff so everyone is aligned with the vision to develop Williams. Then came the protection. Poles completely dismantled that disastrous offensive line and rebuilt it from scratch. Joe Thuney, the all-pro guard with 4 Super Bowl rings, comes from New England and Kansas City. This guy knows what it means to protect elite quarterbacks and win championships. Drew Dalman arrived from Atlanta, where he was solid as a center. Jonah Jackson comes from Detroit, where he worked directly with Ben Johnson. See the pattern? They didn't just improve the offensive line. They brought in players who already know the system Johnson wants to implement. And if that wasn't enough, they revamped the offensive weapons. Colston Loveland from the draft, a tight end who can be immediately productive. Luther Burden III, a slot receiver with speed and the ability to create separation. These aren't long-term projects. They're players who can contribute immediately. All this without mentioning Williams already had established weapons. DJ Moore had a solid season. Rome Odunze, his draft mate, showed flashes of what he can be. Keenan Allen, when healthy, showed he can still produce at the highest level. But do you know what impresses me the most about this whole situation? Williams' mentality. In his end-of-season interviews, he didn't make excuses. Didn't blame the offensive line, didn't blame the coaching, didn't blame anyone. He simply said he needed to be better and was committed to improving. That mentality is exactly what you need in a franchise quarterback. But now comes the real pressure. With all these improvements, with all this talent around him, Williams can't have another decent season. He needs to make the leap to elite quarterback. Do you know what happens if he doesn't? If Williams doesn't take advantage of all these tools they've given him, If he doesn't improve significantly, Chicago could be watching another failed quarterback in their history. And after having invested so much in him, both in draft, capital, and resources around him, it would be devastating for the franchise. The NFL is a quarterback-driven league. Teams with elite quarterbacks compete for championships year after year. Teams without them struggle for relevance. It's that simple. Williams has everything to be the best quarterback in Chicago Bears history. He has the arm to make any throw. He has the mobility to extend plays and create outside of structure. He has the intelligence to read complex defenses. And now he has the system, the protection, and the weapons to maximize all that talent. But expectations are sky high. Fans, expect playoffs. The organization expects to compete for the division title. National media are waiting to see if Williams can rival what Daniels and Nix did in their rookie seasons. The pressure is immense, but that's the reality of being the #1 draft pick quarterback for the Chicago Bears. There's no room for excuses, no time for gradual development. Williams needs to produce now. I believe he's going to manage it. I think we're going to see a completely different Williams this season. More confident, more precise, more effective. I believe Ben Johnson is going to maximize his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. But I also understand that if it doesn't happen, if Williams doesn't make that expected leap, this franchise could be in trouble for years. Everything is pinned on him, and that's a huge responsibility for any 23-year-old player. This season will define the future of the Chicago Bears for the next 10 years. Von Miller could be the veteran piece that elevates our defense. Tyreek Stevenson could redeem himself or could be playing his last season in Chicago. And Caleb Williams could finally make us legitimate contenders, or we could be looking at another failed project at the most important position. Now I want to hear your opinions. Do you think Ryan Poles should go for Von Miller if he's available for a reasonable price? Have you lost patience with Tyreek Stevenson, or do you think he deserves a shot at redemption under Dennis Allen? And the most important question, are you confident that Caleb Williams will make the necessary leap to take us to the playoffs? Leave me your comments because I need to know what real Chicago fans think. If you think this is going to be our season, hit like on this video. If you want to keep debating every move this organization makes, subscribe and turn on the notification bell because we're going to be covering every detail of this crucial season. This is our Bears family, and together we're going to live every moment of this season that could change everything. See you in the next video because Chicago never stops, and neither do we. They're down family. The future starts now.